All right, Jungle friends, welcome back to the podcast. And what a podcast we have for you today. We have Trey Kennedy, the first ever stand-up comedian to come onto this podcast.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Have we had any other comedians?
No.
Not officially.
No. I mean, we've had funny people.
There's been some funny business.
I mean, Lacey Abercrombie.
Yeah, she was funny. There's been some funny business on this podcast. But I think we can say this is the funniest person for a work situation.
Yeah, as his career.
Yeah, like funny for a job. That's a lot of pressure. I don't think I would like that. And, I wouldn't say he comes off, as super funny, but that's on brand because any comedian I've met, when they're not on duty, they're usually pretty low-key people. You even
it's like they're storing up.
Could even say they skew a little mercurial, even maybe skew a little introspective. He even talks about how he kind of is more introverted and shy by nature.
I mean, it makes sense. I imagine like a squirrel that saves up nuts for later. Like maybe they're just stuffing all the funny things in their cheeks.
Yeah, it could be.
And then but they can't smile even because it's all just going to come out.
Yeah,
so they just have to be very, very even keel and serious.
Just mellow. And then all of a sudden they get on stage and all the nuts all everywhere. That was a journey you took us on.
Thanks.
I like that.
Thanks.
Yeah, he does come across in this conversation. We cover a lot of things. I didn't know, we had talked because he wrote a book and we were like, it'd be fun to have him come and talk about it. But he had read our book, Through the Eyes of a Lion, years back. He talks about that at the beginning when he was in college, actually, which is really cool. And it's fun. This message, especially if you know anybody who is an entrepreneur or a digital marketer, influencer, we talk about kind of one of the things I walked away with just an appreciation for how he has migrated from early days in social media on the network Vine to Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, just kind of like, riding the waves of change when it comes to those sorts of things. It was a fun conversation and journey from that perspective.
That's awesome.
Talks about his faith journey. It was a great conversation.
So good.
Yeah. And all of it from Maui, Hawaii. That's where he was the whole interview. He was on vacation because he was like, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to go to Hawaii for this cold winter. Unlike us here in this
freezing
meat
our
locker.
Fingers and our toes.
We could be punching meat like Rocky Balboa in here. Have we thought about leasing space for any meat company looking for overflow storage in our cold podcast studio? Just a way to generate a little side revenue, Anyhow,
that's not a bad thought.
Wanted to mention that at the end of this month, our internship signups close. Every year we have interns come out for the summer. They help out with lots of different things, but it's fun to live in Montana for a while. And if you want to let anyone in your life or yourself who's 18 to 25 know about our internship, they can go to freshlife.church/internship. And that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, check it out.
Love to have them come on out.
Yes.
Enjoy this conversation, friends, with Trey Kennedy. Trey, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on, bro.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It's great to meet you. I gotta tell you, I read your, I don't know if it was your first book or first popular book, sorry if I'm going to butcher it, Roaring Like a Lion, or is that the exact title?
That's it. Well, that's awesome. I did know it. Through the Eyes of a Lion. Through the Eyes of a Lion was the adult book. Roar Like a Lion was the kids version.
Okay. So yeah, I read the adult. I wasn't reading a kid's book in college for no reason. So it was the adult book, I'm pretty sure, and enjoyed that. So yeah, it's kind of cool. I was just a college kid then. So to come full circle and now I have a reason to be on your podcast. It's pretty cool.
Well, so, I've been following you for years. I didn't know you had read a book. I'd never met you at all, but I think you're hilarious. I've just, you're one of those things on Instagram. It's like the tough day, the whatever's going on. It's like, this is just going to bring a little levity. It's your stuff's hilarious. So yeah. And my wife normally comes on the podcast with me. She's a big fan as well. So hello from Jennie.
Yeah. Tell her hi. Appreciate it, man.
Amazing. And so in college then, I don't know anything about you. So this will be full first date edition, if that's okay. Lots of things going on in your life that I want to talk about, but just a little bit about you. Are you from the Midwest? Kansas City is home originally, or just where you live now?
Oklahoma is home originally. So born and raised there, went to Oklahoma State, go Pokes, just kind of finished college and ended up a little north of there, figuring out life. And I've just kind of been there ever since. It's been a great spot. I have good friends there and stuff, still close to home. Go Chiefs. You know, it's great. I moved there in 20.
Why did you make the move to Kansas City?
I finished college and was just a lost kid. Like, I don't know what in the world I'm about to do with my life. Single, no idea where I'm headed. So I had a couple good friends there. I was like, I'll move there. So, because my Oklahoma friends in good Southern Baptist fashion were all engaged. I was like, I don't know. What am I going to do?
You're
so
third wheel professionally. Yeah.
And ended up there in 2017, which is great because I got to admit, I didn't care about the Chiefs at all until I moved there. I thought, hey, let's be a part of the city. And it's been pretty good time to be a Chiefs fan. So that's pretty annoying for everyone else. But
things are up. And what's I know it's a hot topic, but what are the thoughts on the Taylor invasion?
Oh, well, we love it. It's kind of insane how it's cooled off a bit. But when that first started happening, I mean, I had a couple friends who would come across them in town, like they'd be like in the very, very corner with like a whole thing, right? But they'd be like, Taylor, Travis. And it was this kind of funny thing where you'd walk around like, where are they? Maybe they're here. Maybe they want to be my friend. That's what everyone was hoping for, right? But that was nuts. It's been kind of wild and put Kansas City on the map even more. But
yeah, right.
I'm all for it.
So the Kansas City airport is so nice. That's one of those like sleeper nice airports. I flew through there recently, right after they had opened up the new.
Had you been to the old one?
No, I had never been to the old one. So it was just like, wow, this is very nice.
It was, you live in a place, you like to, people come and visit, you want to be proud of it. The airport, the old one was like, especially being a comedian or knowing any other touring comedians who've been at every airport in the country, it's like Kansas City was the worst airport. It was brutal. And so the update was needed. And now it's one of the best in the country. It's
so shiny. Yeah. Like the Sky Club, like all of it's like, yeah, they really did it right.
Brand new. They killed it.
Smells nice. Terrific.
They actually have good coffee in there.
Okay.
Shout out
now
Messenger,
what is
Kansas City staple.
Messenger, is that what it's called?
That's one of the popular ones. Kansas City's got I've been in a lot of cities in this country, and for the size of it, it's really surprised you how good of kind of food and coffee and stuff they got going on there.
What's the population size of that city?
It's about metro, and I know this, right? I was talking about this with a friend recently. Like, if I were to ask you the population of where you live, you know the answer to that, right?
Yes, right.
People who don't know that, they've lived there for years, they go, I don't know. I never
thought about that.
You're dead to me.
Yeah, you're terrible.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Like, yeah, it's like people who don't know.
You ever been curious once?
The temperature out today. Like, these are the things we need to figure out.
Yeah. It's about the metro's a little over 2 million, 2.2 or something like that.
Yeah.
So, it's actually similar size to like a Nashville and Austin.
Okay.
Population
it's a good size. It's a good size
area.
A little
smaller. I mean, a lot less going on, but people forget about Kansas City. It's got a good bit going on.
And that's pulling from 2 states, which is the interesting thing about that city to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone likes to ask which side. Which is just all it is annoying because I've happened to go back and forth now twice, and so I have to go to the DMV way more than any human should ever have to.
Yeah, wow. And is there tax incentives? Like, is there a more advantageous side to be on for tax reasons?
Barely, but the Missouri side is like a tiny bit better. So you'll notice if you're on that kind of state line, people kind of gravitate over there, but it's not much.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I always find the state line thing, like any city that intersects with states, I find that just interesting. It's like a strange cultural phenomenon.
It's weird too because we have state laws, so it's a big one. Missouri's just legalized it, but the online sports gambling craze. Kansas was legal and Missouri wasn't for a couple of years. So you'd notice these like sports bars would pop up right on the border on the Kansas side, and like I had buddies who would like get in their car and drive so they could place a little or like you can legally buy marijuana in Missouri, but not Kansas. So you go right over to Kansas and it's like, boom, boom, boom. So that's kind of an interesting part of it too. You get those little differences, but
yeah,
I'm chilling in Kansas now.
No one's going to like, I like the 4 corners thing. You're like, I can be in 4 states at one time.
Right.
Nothing, probably not that so much.
No, there's a
People
state
lying on the
line
ground
road,
like
which
I'm in
is
both of them.
yeah, I guess you could. I've done it. The state line road. They got one. You're on either side. I think when people come, they're like, "Whoa, we're in another state now," but that gets old after like 2 days.
I flew next to a pastor on a plane recently, and he was telling me his church is in Kansas City, but the parking lot is in Missouri. And so he was like, the big joke is always like in the host open, like, oh, for those of you who had to park in another state, we're sorry. Like,
Oh, nice.
pretty good.
Oh, that's a pastor's dream right
dude,
there. Yeah,
it's
a great opener.
you're salivating over that chance to like make that joke.
That's
like
why he bought the
frothing.
property, I think.
It's like, this is going to be the greatest announcement block of my life. Yeah, so good.
Kill it.
Never gets old.
Never does. Every
Oh
Sunday.
my gosh. Okay, so you graduate from school, you move to Kansas City for your community, for friends and all that. I know you started comedy like officially, on Vine, and it was really, is that right? That's where it kind of began?
Correct.
Was it there in Trey's quantities younger than that? Like, were you the class clown in 5th grade?
I was the funny guy, but I was shy. I was pretty shy, which, people kind of surprised by, but so amongst close friends and stuff, I was pretty goofy. And as I got a bit older, I got a little more confident. I was class clown in some of those classes. And if you knew me, that was definitely my thing. My identity was Trey So Funny. But it never crossed my mind to pursue it even for a second. Anything beyond just being the funny guy. I never thought I could do it for a living. But
there was no sense of monetizing that. Yeah.
No, not at all. That never even, literally never one time crossed my mind that I could maybe do it professionally. I was just like, yeah, I'm a funny guy. That's awesome. I love being funny. I love making people laugh. And what am I going to do with my life? I don't know.
Did you have an answer to that? Like when people did ask you what you wanted to do when you grow up?
Not at all. I mean, I was big sports kid, loved basketball. So, however many years until I was 10, 12, whatever, I was going to be in the NBA, of course. And then, I was fine. But
someone told you that was like, did anyone lovingly tell you like, that's not happening?
No, it was, I think I like to think I'm pretty observant and logical. I think that helps anyone be a comedian. So I was unraveling it myself there, kind of looking around, just like 6'1" white guy. All right, let's see how many of those are in the NBA. And the answer is almost always 0. It's kind of amazing. Maybe 1.
Right. Yeah.
And
but that seat's taken, one at a time. They only allow one at a time. Yeah.
And even so I shifted pretty quick to like, it'd be fun to play in college, but that you start even looking at the answer to the same question. You're like, there's not many. And I remember I went to a doctor. I had some kind of like shin splint, classic. And I went to some doctor and they did some scan or something. He's like, yeah, I can see here your growth plates. They're closed out. You're done, man. I was like 15 and
That's
6
so
foot
disillusioning.
tall.
Oh man.
I mean, I was still locked in on I'm going to be 6'5".
I hate that science exists. Like to know that. Until this moment, I didn't know that was a thing. Also,
right. And I remember my mom tells a story. I guess my sweet mom, who's rarely confrontational with anyone, I guess she kind of took that doctor aside and kind of ripped him a new one. She's like, "Come on, man," because I guess let a kid dream. Because I guess my mom just said I walked out of there just like I'd seen a ghost. Just kind of like, I think in that moment, I was like, well, it's going to be tougher now.
I picture the doctor looking in the microscope, and you're just like, "Oh, come on, please, come on."
Never forget. He's like, "Hope you're a point guard."
Hate to break it to you,
you're done. And so,
you could be the white guy in the Harlem Globetrotters. They always have the one white guy that's kind of the foil. That would be
the professor. He paved a path for us all. If I could just get my handles down, but I
Spud
gave up
Webb
that
guy.
dream pretty quick.
Remember that guy, Spud Webb?
Spud Webb, 5'7". Unfortunately, I couldn't 360 dunk, but that's true.
That.
If you're 5'7" and with a 50-inch vertical, maybe. Mine was more like 30. But sports kid all growing up, and I was the funny kid on the basketball team, all that good stuff. But if you asked me what I wanted to do,
did your mom sprinkle salt in your shoes? That was like the Michael Jordan thing, right? Have you heard of that?
No. Yeah, I have heard of that. No, she didn't do that. I was trying to be the great white hope. You give me Larry Bird, Pete Maravich. These are my idols.
Yeah, there you go.
Those guys
no
who are
salt,
just,
no salt in
they're
the
out.
shoes.
I'm from Oklahoma. We're out it's funny, Larry and Maravich, they're out on the dirt court, just putting up shots. I lived in a gated community, but I was still going. I was like, yeah, I'm from the back rows, just putting up shots. But gave that up. And if you asked me what I wanted to do, I had no answer for you. I was just going to college, and we'll see. That was kind of all I had.
What did you study?
I got a degree in finance, which again was just kind of like, I have no clue, business for I think a couple years. And they go, well, you got to kind of pick one. I go, well, fine. I guess finance, that's good, right? So that's really how that happened. I don't like finance at all. And by the time I was graduating, I was like, I cannot do finance. So thank God for Vine.
Has it come to benefit you in any way, though? Having that, you think, like, it just in any ways you structure your business?
Not, I mean, I guess a little bit. I have some foundational knowledge, but again, I didn't apply myself a lot. As I was nearing the end and it was too late to change, I was like, I don't like this. But yeah, I mean, it helps a little bit. But I've just my whole life, I've just noticed these outlets of me wanting to be really, really creative. And so thank God for social media and stuff like that, because it led me down a whole different path there than I was maybe heading otherwise.
And was that just like purely fun for you when you picked up that? And what year would that have been when you started putting videos on Vine?
2013 Vine came out. That's why I was getting on it. So 2013 to 2017. 2016 was the Vine heyday, as I was on it all the time. And yeah, just having a blast. Remind me of, like, I don't know if you ever did this. I feel like a lot of people, our generation or something, you grew up with. I remember I first got a flip phone when I was like in middle school, and we were like, it's so cool, we have a camera. And we'd record little like stupid videos. I think a lot of kids can. So when it came out on an iPhone, like this easy way to shoot videos, Vine was kind of the first to do that. I was like, oh, this is so fun. So we were just goofing off in college. And then I got, as I tended to do with random things, got really fixated on it, addicted to it, and was just Vines, and then kind of blew up and got millions of followers. I was like, cool. But still, even then, I wasn't like, this is a job. I was like, this is a cool story one day. That's about it.
And then when did Vine get shut down? When was the breaking point? Was that 17?
That was 16.
Okay.
Yeah. Very end of 16, where I was finishing college. So it was kind of like this perfect, and it's not like it was like you woke up and it was done. It was a months long, very clear, like, this is done.
And was it Reels that killed it? What killed it?
What killed it was, so this is how far back it was. Instagram did not have video yet. Snapchat did not have stories yet. It was purely just video. So Snapchat came out with my story. Instagram came out with video. And Vine just didn't really adapt, and they kind of crushed it. And that was that. So I started making videos on Instagram. I had way less followers. Still kind of like, I don't think this is my job. So I was applying for jobs as Vine was dying. And I thought that was what I was gonna do, but got a different plans. I couldn't get a job. And so I said, screw it. I'll move to Kansas City, get an apartment with one of my best friends, and I'm just gonna make videos for 6 months and see what happens.
And those were all going to Instagram at that time?
Instagram and Facebook. Yep.
Was it hard to get your followers to migrate, or was it entirely new, or like what was that strategy like?
I just started from scratch, partly because I did a poor job ever building my other socials, because it's so funny back then. You're on Instagram just posting photos, video comes out, it's new. But Vine kind of felt like this fun, different place. But I knew if I posted too many videos on Instagram, people were already seeing these, but I felt like that was going to really put me too much in the forefront of like my actual world and social circle, because I was getting made fun of because people this wasn't cool 10 years ago to be a guy with followers. It was more just like, what is this guy doing? And so when Vine died, I had 2.5 million followers gone, and I had maybe 30,000 followers on Instagram. So pretty much started over. And luckily, Facebook able to kind of go viral, Instagram, and build that up. And so,
And was your
by the
strategy
time
the
I died, I
same,
was done.
or were your video approaches different? Like, how much does the medium factor into the media?
Yeah, at that time, Instagram was 60 seconds or less of a video, and Vine was 6 seconds. So I went from making 6-second videos to maybe 30, 45-second videos, which I remember at the time felt like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? But so evolved a little bit there, and was able to kind of figure that out, and did that for a good while, but built those up to 1 million followers, and was started paying the bills, and finally then started to have a realization of, okay, maybe I could do this for at least a little while. I don't know if I'm going to be 45 doing this, right? But I guess, hey, for a few years, I'll see what happens, and then maybe I'll get a job. That was still the mindset.
Well, and the fact that you had now, it probably gave you a lot of confidence to know, like, it's not a fluke. Because I mean, to get 2 million followers on Vine probably felt flukish, but to then you've like, okay, I've proven this now. I can sit down, even with a different medium. And I would think that the 6-second would be a lot harder than the 60-second, but maybe I'm wrong.
Right. I mean, in hindsight, I agree. I think at the time, it was just, everything's increased in quality, right? So back then you said your phone, 6 seconds, boom. And then it felt really daunting it just was getting better and better. So I had to learn kind of how to, the very, very basics of like record a video, edit it, put a little sketch together. It was more than what I was doing on Vine. And I mean, I guess kind of confident. I mean, it took me years and years to start to feel confident with like, all right, I guess I have a knack for this. Maybe I have a gift for this, because, like with anything, imposter syndrome or whatever, you're kind of like, oh my God, okay, I got to do another video. I got to get more views. Is this finally the end? Is this finally where I ran out of ideas? So I just kept plugging away, and, ups and downs, but figured it out, thank God. And because, as we know, social media was always changing. So I had to figure out a bunch of different ways to make videos.
So literally out of college to this present day, this has been only your ever job. So you never did have to like go part-time wait tables or whatever. This has been it.
This is basically, yeah, I did do one internship, a summer in college, to kind of, again, as I was feeling out what am I going to do with my life. I was making the videos, but I didn't think that was a job. So I used my like degree and got a internship as a pricing analyst. Good old cubicle, like corporate. That's my one experience, was a few months there over the summer. And again, valuable experience, because I got a taste of that world. And I'm definitely I'm not one of those people that hates on like, oh, I think that's great, but I get hesitant to be like, I'm not meant for a desk job, because it feels like a lot of people who say that they don't want to do any job ever.
Right.
And I'm more just like, yeah, I want to be careful before I announce that. And I was like, you know what? I really do think I'm wired to do something a little bit different than maybe to show up to the office and leave. I want to do a little something more creative and more unique and more exciting, me personally. So I was grateful for that experience, but that was short lived. Yeah, I kind of just went for it with the content.
Like you had your Walter Smitty moment. You realize you can't sit there as a cog in the wheel. You had to go right out the window and climb Mount Everest of comedy and all the things.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. That's good. That's the pastor right there. The analogy. That's beautiful. And it was a little bit like that, where I want to be doing something all the time, and kind of this high energy person, and a person who doesn't play the game well. Comedian does the opposite of probably what a lot of employees at a corporate. But it's like, all right, well, that's kind of BS, or that was kind of silly. Just be a team player. Whereas I would have gotten fired eventually. I would have been like, what are we doing? Why are we doing that? Like, that's what you're supposed to do. So it worked out well that I moved on, because all growing up with all the schools and everything, the teacher, I was like a class clown in a bad way. Like the teachers didn't like me. And I'm saying that I was a bad kid. I should have been better. My sweet mother, she dealt with a lot, but it wasn't maybe the best place for me. I had to go do my own thing.
It made me think about Mr. Incredible when he's like working for the insurance company. He's like telling them on the sly, like how to get through the loopholes to get their payout. And like, it's the opposite of his job. Like you would have found your contrarian way, which is sort of the low key comedian, like success path, right?
Yeah, 100%. That's absolutely. So I'm grateful that we figured it out sooner than later. So I don't have to do too much of that messing people up.
And the proof of concept, of course, has been established. You're saying you're able to live like Instagram and Facebook. You were able to start generating revenue. Was Vine not that way? Was there not a way to take advertising revenue from it?
No, the only thing you could do on Vine were brand deals, as I think most people are aware of now in the influencer world. So those started. That was the first kind of light bulb moment when I had millions of followers and some kid was like, "Hey, I'll PayPal you to promote this like TMU phone case I'm hawking," and I'm like, he's like, "I'll PayPal you $200 to post it in a Vine," which in hindsight, I got millions of views. That's worth however much money now. But I was just like, yeah, a deal. Are you serious? And that's when I was first like, oh, I guess I do have something that is of value to people. So then it was a lot of like corny apps and stuff, like download this dating app, like before Tinder and all that, like weird. They just PayPal you a few $100. And then by the end of Vine, I had done somewhat like, Pepsi and Dick's Sporting Goods. A lot of those brands were starting to do that towards the end of Vine. So I had some money saved up where it wasn't like I was necessarily taking a huge financial leap to go rent an apartment for 6 months, but it was still just being a more practical guy of kind of like, where's this head? I don't want to goof off for 3 years and then just maybe I have a little money saved up, but I have no clue what I'm doing with my life. Like, where's this headed? And so pretty quickly I was able to grow my following enough where I could start getting those brand partnerships on Instagram and Facebook. And that was 100% of my income. So it was just kind of week to week praying I'd get an email from like McDonald's or something because I would go months without making a single dollar and then get like the brand deal. But again, like pretty good check where it wasn't like I'm going to have to take out a loan type of thing, but it was, okay, I can't go 3 months with making $0, right? That's not a life that's going to work out. I want to get a wife, I want to get kids. So I was still very much hesitant to fully dive in, but I was just seeing where it headed.
And your cost of living was low at that point. I mean, relatively, you're single, so you could afford to let this experiment play out a little bit. How long was your I'm presumably people are just literally looking up your email address or DMing you or whatever. How long was it that way before I assume now you have an agent or someone who's going out and seeking out those deals for you. So how was that timeline?
That was Vine. I kind of did my own thing because those deals weren't very big, and you had a bunch of those slimy guys getting in there real early, like sign this. And luckily I was a little old enough to kind of be like, this seems sketchy. And I had like a dad who's a business guy who could be like, yeah, don't do that. I remember I got offered pretty early and pretty aggressively, like, we're going to have you make 20 vines for Virgin Mobile or one of those, something a little random, like sign here. And it was like 20 videos for, I think, $3,000 or something, which again, in hindsight, that's so much content, so many views, way more money, but you're in college. You're like, what? Where do I sign? And I remember my dad went through it. We used an attorney. The attorney was like, I mean, this is great. And we didn't do it. Or my dad, I was a college kid with no money. And he's like, you can't, will not allow you to do this. And of course it was like a wise choice, but I was very grateful to have that foundation because any other kid with a little bit less counseling would have just been like, yeah, good, go. And could have gotten weird. So
Faustian, just a super Faustian deal. You're like, I'm going to give my soul away for you. I don't care how many chalupas you're giving me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so my dad was kind of, my my helper in those early days, stuff like taxes and that simple stuff. And then I found my manager, where I'm still with to this day, probably 6 months or so into full time, starting to make the videos. And he started to help me navigate all of this. So he's been
Okay,
great.
so if you could go back to freshman year of college with what you know now, and you were to sort of hack your educational experience there, I don't know, and I'm sure there's a university that has an influencer track now, or degree in being a micro celebrity. But if you could build
Maybe.
a degree or undergraduate degree that would be full of tools that would benefit you on a daily basis, how would you craft that?
Man, that's a fun question. I've thought of my college, because obviously so much of my college isn't applying to me now, but not a lot of people become comedians. I feel very fortunate. And I think of having kids now and thinking of where college is headed and how much how the millions of ways you can make money these days because of the internet, and how I definitely don't think it's valuable to, the strategic communications degree or some of these. I remember taking a class with here's how you write an email that's polite. And I remember that I was like, what are we doing? I'm paying thousands of dollars for this. And you look today, I'm working with people now. You just these people, these very successful people I might work with now, they just shoot an email. It's not like they're like, dearest Trey.
Yeah, right.
Just talk. So some of this stuff is getting outdated real quick.
Well, and there's
I think
ChatGPT anyway. So you want to write an
now
email? Here's my email. Yeah, right.
and it's changing so fast. I don't even know, because anything. I was about to say you could maybe teach people simple video editing software or how to navigate so much of the tech online, but that changes every 6 months. I don't really know. It's gonna be interesting to see what colleges do, because besides all the ones that are obvious with doctors and engineers, and how do you really train someone up to be kind of a serial entrepreneur using the internet? I don't know. I think the best advice I could give someone, and what I'm grateful I just did naturally for whatever reason, is I've just been trying to do one thing for a decade now, which is be as funny as possible, and that has helped me. I think if you find the thing and you just do the thing for decades, it's gonna work out to some degree. Whatever that is, I'm not sure, but
Very good. And maybe the benefit of college is the stick with itness of even that, doing something hard, repetitive, in a sense that proves a little bit of a sense of accomplishment on hey, you can stick with it, and then on to the next thing.
no doubt. I mean, to do the stuff you don't want to do and get it done, and all my best friends are from college, and so we can't get rid of that experience. I mean, that was so invaluable and so much fun. And my wife went to Georgia Tech, which is one of the best, toughest,
it's a big deal, yeah.
schools in the country. I went to Oklahoma State. No disrespect to my alma mater, but they let in. I think my 3-year-old could get in next year, but it's a good time, and I got a good degree and love those folks, and I met some of my best friends, and it's just funny. It was such a fun, important social time for me, because I came in pretty shy, and I was in a fraternity, which is a bunch of great dudes. That's the nice part of being in the buckle of the Bible Belt. We had mandatory Bible studies, not binge drinking. It was that vibe. It was great.
What's that Mark Twain quote? Made me think of it when you said that they let you in. He's like, I refuse to be a member of any club that would have me as a member.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Really. But I had so much fun. My wife was miserable at her college experience. She studied 80 hours a week I had a great time. So I would tell people, unless you want to go be some intensely great neurosurgeon or something, your talent, your hard work is going to get you there eventually. So I would aim for more fun college.
Okay, I want to ask you this. At this point in our conversation, as we establish our timeline of Trey Kennedy's life, it's been all, social media, really. At which point did you realize, okay, I want to actually be a comedian beyond just these shorts? I mean, obviously 6 seconds to 60 seconds, I mean, you just on Hulu have this brand new comedy special, Grow Up, that's out, filmed in what is it, Abiyavinar Theater in Salt Lake City.
I know it took me. I didn't know how to pronounce it until the second show. Abravanel.
I was way off. Samsonite. I was completely off on
whatever
that.
it is.
Shout
out Utah.
It looks. I mean, it's a beautiful theater.
Beautiful, really, really great. It went great. So yeah, shout out Hulu for giving me the chance. Get it on there. It's been some great feedback.
Go to Hulu, get the Grow Up comedy special. But what my question is, when did you go, oh, okay, because stand-up comedy is a lot different than creating short-form social media where you can do 500 takes, right?
Yeah, it's that again was, I've just been, I never thought I'd do comedy, never thought I'd do stand-up, never thought I'd have a special. I've just been taking this a day at a time and just always trying to challenge myself to take on new things. And again, stand-up was a thing that I couldn't shake. I felt like the Lord had this opportunity for me, and I had to at least try. And this really dates back to college when I discovered a singing talent. That's how I kind of started getting on stage performing while I was doing the videos and gaining this confidence to try out things. And I remember I was adamant. I will never sing in front of anybody. I'll never get on a stage. And I kind of felt a feeling of, well, what if I just reject this my whole life and I never know and I miss out on something really cool God might have for me. So I've always just tried to not turn down stuff because I was scared, but to do it. And so stand up was a thing where they're like, hey, you have millions of followers. You could sell tickets to a show. And I was like, what show? They're like, you can put together a cute little Q&A, blah, blah, blah. I was like, that sounds awful. So let me try it. So I started doing stand-up, and horrifying, terrifying. I can't believe I ever got up there the first time. But
where did you go on stage for the first time? Was it open mic night or something like that?
So at this point I have an agent, and they're repping me to try to, build me this touring business. And they're like, we'll get you some spots. And so I'm in Kansas City, and they're like, there's a couple clubs there. And I was like, you know what? No, my first time ever. I'm so nervous. I don't even want to risk having a friend of a friend of a friend witness this. So put me somewhere else. So I drove to Des Moines, Iowa for my very first time. And my then girlfriend, now wife, Katie, came with me to support. We just drove up to do a 10-minute set, which again is so much for the first time.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's
way less.
That's a lot longer than 60 seconds, but it's still a lot shorter than 60 minutes. I mean, goodness.
Yeah, I was so naive. I probably should have started with 3 minutes or something, but I practiced this set the more than I've ever practiced any set, and did it. It was fine. It wasn't a total nightmare. I didn't leave there feeling like a total failure, but like, all right, I did it. And
was it a rush? Was it exciting, the live audience component?
No, not at all. And I'm not one of these guys who I'm like, just the stage. I come alive. Like, I don't like the stage. I don't really, deep down, I don't want that. But I love to make people laugh and perform in a weird way. So no, it was purely, it felt like when you finish a marathon or something, you're just like, that's done.
There wasn't the runner's high though, and the endorphins.
No, just like, I just did it, got off stage, go home. Oh my God, I did it. And I was like, okay, let's go back. And it was a handful of times later where I started to get a couple real laughs and start to feel all right, I get why people like this. This is getting fun. And then you get up there to go really bad. And you go, why do people do this? I must have something wrong with me. Why am I still going up here?
What was that first time bombing like? What were the dynamics? What do you remember about that? Oh,
I'll never forget it. It's probably my 5th or 6th set. And the time before, I felt like for the time, I felt like I kind of nailed it for the first time, right? It was my first time getting off stage feeling confident. Was the 4th or 5th time I went up, and it was an all black crowd. And I hadn't done an all black crowd, but I'm thinking, all right, I've been around tons of black folks. I wasn't necessarily that nervous, but I was like, it's my first time. I get up, and this crowd's just a great crowd, high energy. They show me a lot of love, and I get off stage thinking I'm hot stuff. I go up the next week, and it's a black crowd. So I'm kind of like,
I got this.
These are my people. Yeah, I mean, I go up there, and what was it? I never forget the opening joke. Well, yeah, what was it? It was Queer Eye for the Straight, whatever that show is called on Netflix.
Straight guy, yeah.
Queer for the Straight Guys, that was called. That was big at the time. This is 6 years, 7 years, 5 years ago. And so my opening joke was something about I was like, what was it? My dad, he was tough. I never saw him cry. I'm different than my dad. I watched 5 gay guys give a girl a makeover and used a whole box of tissues last night. That was something like that. And I realized real quick, black people do not watch this show because they stared at me like I was speaking Chinese. And that was my first time experiencing like set up joke and you could just hear crickets.
Crickets.
And I was like, and I just fell apart. I mean, I just kind of like, talking like this and you could start to hear them laugh at me.
Oh gosh.
And
Room turned on you.
And I just got off stage. And the comedian who followed me was the only other white person in the whole building. And he's like, it's going to be tough to trust another white guy after that, huh?
Stop.
And
he had that probably from that moment.
Oh, I mean, and then of course at the time as a total newbie, I was like, why is he being so mean to me? But now it's like, yeah, it's funny. And he had to do, it's like, dude, I set him up for such failure. He had no choice, but I just like left out the back door and I didn't cry, but I feel like I could have cried. And I was like, I'll never do that again. I never will do that again. And you wake up the next day and you're like, I think I got to do it again. I don't know why, but that was, I think another joke when people say hold my, hold my beer, that euphemism. I said something that night too. I think my next joke attempt was like, white people really more like hold my kombucha. And they were like, boo.
That's actually so funny. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, what am I doing up here?
Yeah. You don't make the kombucha joke in an all black comedy club. Now, why didn't you just use the same material that slayed the night before at the last encounter?
Well, that's a great question. Well, you're up there. I'm trying to work on jokes, right? So I got a little too confident. I hadn't really totally died on stage yet. So I was like, I'll start up top with I got something new I want to try. And I couldn't handle it, man.
And by the time you were adrenalized, it was probably like you couldn't think clearly to pull back this tried and true content.
No, I was too green to kind of be like, all right, got to switch to this or do this. I would truly like, I'd talk to enough guys to be like, hey, if I knew enough to at least know, like, you got to finish your time. You can't just run off stage. So I was just like, I'll just keep talking until my time's up and I'm going to leave and cry.
Oh my gosh. That's probably good though. It would probably build some serious character and eventually like the desire, like, let's not go there again. And here's what we're going to do if we need to break glass a little bit.
Well, it's like with anything. I'm sure, you're a guy been on stage a ton. You just learn at that point in my career, you tell a bad joke and you're like, I don't deserve to ever be heard say a joke again. But now you're like, yeah, Bill Burr got on stage last weekend and tried a new joke that no one laughed at. Like, it's just kind of how it goes. And you just go, all right, all good. And you keep going. But at that point in time, you think it's the end of the world.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. Okay. So from there to now, like the special, I mean, were you traveling that material a lot and doing it at open mic nights and comedy clubs before you like felt confident that you're like, okay, I got a solid hour here?
Well, yeah, back then when I was just getting started, I was doing a lot of just more local stuff, trying to get my feet under me. And then now this Grow Up special's been a work in progress for 2 years, toured over 100 cities. I did a bunch of clubs too. I've done this, some version of this hour, 150 plus times and got.
Okay, so that's an interesting number. Wow. So on tour, same content, just honing it, and then nothing new was that night, or did anything spontaneous make it into that special?
The special, there's a couple tiny just like crowd interaction moments that are make it a little fresh, but the special, the probably 10 shows leading up to the special, I tried to almost word for word hone in on what I wanted to kind of be printed. But over the course of those 100 shows, I mean, if you came to a show, in March and then came back in September, it'd be 85% the same thing. But you notice okay, that bit's new, or he tweaked that or whatever. And so that's what's fun. I'll tell the same bit 50 times, and the 51st time I'm just in the moment, something pops in my head and I say it, and it just is another laugh. And then you're like, all right, we'll add that in. So
I'm pulling that into it.
yeah, it's kind of surprising how I remember there's a couple jokes in the special that I thought of like 2 weeks before. I've been doing the hour for 18 months. And for whatever reason, one night the thing pops in my head. I go, great, that was funny. Leave it in. So if I could have done 50 more cities, the special would have looked even a little different. But at some point, as you know, as a pastor or author or anything, you could keep tweaking till the end of time, and you at some point go, all right, I think this is where it's at. Let's print it.
Yeah, wow. I love that. I could talk all day about creative process. I find that so intriguing. Do you have set hours like writing time? Is it more random and throughout? You shower? Like, are you kind of always collecting, or is there time when it's like I'm sitting down and doing my Jerry Seinfeld cross the X off kind of a deal?
All of it. I used to really do some more intense writing sessions, and over the course of putting together my stand-up, I've just found out what works for me better. And I just do a ton of my writing on the stage, so you just have to get on stage a lot. But it's a ton of ideas pop in my head at all times of the day and night. Write it down. Random moments of inspiration where I'll just kind of keep going and do a voice memo, whatever. It's really a lot of that, and then prepping. I think the ideation of what's funny, I think, just happens in my life on the fly, and I write it down. And then any blocks of time, it's like really organizing that into kind of a few bullet points where it'll be in a set, and then you just do it on stage. And because I've learned too, I'll spend hours writing out this bit. I'm like, this masterful bit, and you do it on stage twice, and you're like, no one laughed at that. So that I've learned too, like, okay, I think this is potential. Before I spend hours and hours working on it, let's just try a glimpse of it on stage. Okay, it has some hope. Back to the drawing board. So it's really just back and forth between the stage and the studio to fine tune it. And but there's just no excuse. There's no way to do it other than getting on the stage a lot. I got back on the road after our baby girl was born and did 5 shows in Wisconsin. And by the end of 5 hours on stage, you're just like, everything changed so much.
Do you have people that you collaboratively open that process? Like, I know, like for me, like I'm pretty like internal with me, but there's a couple people who I know I can trust. Do you have that with your wife? Do you have a couple people you'll text with, or is it only just, hey, I know what I think's funny, and that's going to be tested with a live audience?
I'm pretty lone wolf in a lot of my stuff, but I have a couple of my wife for sure. I like to bounce stuff off of her. She's pretty brutally honest. And I have one of the guys who opens for me on the road, Lucas. Love to, what he hears my sets, and we like to go back and forth on our bits, and he's really helpful, as well as Alan, who comes on the road with me, and then co-host of my podcast. He used to be on the road with me. He's moved on to bigger and better things, but he's super funny dude that I feel like I can ask ideas of too. So yeah, just a few select folks I feel like I can go to and have actual quality advice, because we all know some people I know can be like, is this funny? And everything out of my mouth, like, yeah. And then other people too, or my wife, she's good in some moments, but sometimes too, she's too nice. So I'm like, I'm going to make fun of this a little bit. She's like, no, like, I think people are going to like it. Like, a bit that made the special that I really like is I talk about having a baby for the first time and that whole experience, and how I was raised Christian. And you hear this phrase like, love the sinner, hate the sin. And we like to differentiate. And I kind of get to the punchline where I was like, it just reminded me of this new experience for me. And I was like, I love my son. I hated the baby.
Hilarious.
And
hilarious.
Yeah. And I said it to my wife first time, and she was like, no, you can't. No,
baby?
Moms are going to be so upset. And I was like, I don't know. So it's also funny with my wife where we've both been right and both been wrong, where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try it tonight. I'll let you know. And I remember like off stage the first time, I was like, you were wrong. People love it.
As long as it's not their baby. People can laugh about any ugly baby that's not theirs. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so funny. Okay. And you mentioned your podcast, which you've been doing since 2019, Correct Opinions. You also have an email list. You still post to Instagram and Facebook. You still are putting out specials, comedy hours, all these things. How do you think about, emotional energy and I mean, obviously you're diversifying content very well, but like how do you decide what's going to be the driving force behind which eggs get which basket, which mouth to feed, which plate to spin? Like, how do you balance your time and, and effort on all that?
I it's a great question. Now with wife and kids too, it's trying to put all that together. I'm fortunate. I've got a handful of great folks that help me with all this stuff in various capacities that really buy me back a lot of time. And so I've got a bunch of great people helping tour side of things and the content side of things, and got them both pretty like well-oiled machines where I really don't feel there's busy stretches, but I don't feel too overbooked. And I get to really spend flexible and pretty substantial time with my kids and my wife, which I'm really grateful for. So um I really just, and now with kids it just becomes a lot more like I'm talking to you right now from Hawaii. We're spending a couple weeks here, Katie's parents, and just getting out of the winter and enjoying it. I'm kind of working, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go off to this coffee shop and work for 3 hours, and it's just like intense work for 3 hours. Whereas before, years ago, as a single dude, I'd probably do that same amount of work in 8 hours. You're just kind of taking your time, whatever. So I think my 20s were about figuring out what I'm doing well and how to do it better, and now 30s is kind of, I feel like, optimizing and getting better at that time management, and just getting better at, because as a creative you want to be like, I just, no pressure, I gotta just, as the vibes hit me, I gotta figure it out. But you gotta learn a little bit. If you want to do all these things, you gotta be like, all right, creative, go. And that doesn't always work, but I'm trying to get better at that.
Well, you
And
mentioned the comedy you don't collaborate as much with. That's just a few people you'll text your lone wolf there. But you said you have a content team. So where do you allow other voices to take and multiply content out? Because like I know for me, no one can write my sermon for me. I don't let anybody write my books for me, but stuff that gets posted, clips that are selected, other things that get written, I allow, a lot more delegation in certain regards, but some things have to come from me. Where does that kind of fall out for you?
yeah, true. I think people really value. It's definitely a thing within comedy for sure, as I know it is in pastoral teaching, is kind of, you got to be the writer. It'd be like if it was like Trey Could He Grow Up, and it was like written by, and it was like four guys and not my name.
But isn't it so funny that John F. Kennedy
lame.
didn't write his speech about, that's not what your country can do for you? In certain regards, it's totally allowed. Like, yeah, that's
Right.
the presidential speechwriter. Music, same way.
Yeah, but it's funny. You can't, for whatever reason, I think we're in the same boat. Whereas your sermons or your comedy specials, if you're like John Mulaney, written by this dude named Gary, you'd be like, what? Just get Gary up there. Why are we doing that? I don't know why that's the thing. I think that's actually going to be I've thought about this a lot. I'm not going to personally do it because I like to do my own thing, but I think there's going to be an opportunity for comedy specials to maybe have several writers one day, kind of like music or something, as big as comedy's getting. But I digress. I like stuff, some of the editing, right? And a lot of comedy comes from the edit. And I used to edit my own stuff, and had to give that away at some point. So I've been lucky to find a couple great guys who get it, have a good sense of humor, and they always send me edits for approval, but they really do a ton of the grunt work there, and even adding humor to the edit that wasn't originally there. And that's such a game changer. So shout out my editors, Derek, Mikey.
So that's an example. Was that tough for you to give that out? Like, was that like hard? Was that hard for you, OCD, to let go of that?
Definitely. And but Jake, who is my co-host on the podcast, he's evolved he started as my editor. And when I could finally just let him do it, and I realized like, oh, okay, there are people out there that are funny that I can trust with this edit. It's such a game changer. You just hours and hours of your life are give it back to you. And so it took me a while. And even on those edits, I'd like really micromanage, and you have to kind of let go of that. And it can be tough because I see edits even my guy, it's a different guy editing it, right? And I get it back and I'd say, you know what, I would have done it this way or that way, but the way you did it is you, and it's still funny, and I still think we got somewhere, and that's fine. Or even like my grow up special, the way it's edited. I don't think specials being edited is a huge deal, but you want a certain look on a certain punchline and stuff. And I hired a great team that are pros and let them do their thing. And you have to you pick and choose for sure. And
it's a healthy compartmentalization, really, is what you're describing.
Yeah, but it's tough, and I think it's a very natural problem a ton of people have. But I've every step of my career, I can look to finally delegating a thing, and it's pretty much 100% of the time I'm like, oh, I should have done that a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Okay, how big is your team now? How many people work for you?
They're pretty much, I have one full-time person, but they're pretty much all part-time contracted type positions. On the content side, I've got 2 videographers and editors, and then I have one full-time person, and then my manager and one other part-time. And then the touring side's a whole other beast where we've got a handful of contracted, my tour manager and the merch person, and my manager helps there too. And then I have my booking agents. And so I think all in all, close to a dozen people involved in my world in various capacities. And honestly, it's, I've been tempted time from time to be like, should I hire a handful of full-time people? But then, it's shout out to the people who run these businesses with all these employees. I mean, it's stressful. You got to pay, you got to feed a dozen families. That's a lot. So it's, I remember hearing this years ago. Actually, Tim Hawkins, I'm sure you're familiar with him. You probably even know him. He's
I don't know who that is.
Christian comedian. Wow, Christian comedian legend, Tim Hawkins. I remember hearing years ago that he had built up his tour business because what most do is the agent takes their fee and they help you, or the manager takes the fee and they help you do all this stuff. But he did it all in house, where he led it and hired it out, and they did this touring. But then he kind of got in a situation where he had to keep touring because there was these people's jobs.
Right.
So it's been really freeing, right? I have a bunch of people help me in various capacities in like part-time roles. So I don't feel like if at some point I just want to tour and not make videos, I can do that, or vice versa, or whatever.
You're flexible. It's a flexible.
Yeah.
It's a blessing to them when the work comes, but it's not like you're committing to them at this level, and it always has to stay there. Okay, I want to talk about your new book. This is is this your first book you've written?
Yeah, first book, children's book. How you got your name? You got it, baby.
Your name? Yeah, I've read this to my kids. It's fun. It's a good story. I want to talk about where did this idea come from, and it's a fun book. It's I mean, as parents, we're always looking for something else for bedtime, just something new. You end up reading the same, 10 things every other time, and this is a great springboard because, of course, when this book ends, you can talk to the kid about how their name got given and what was significant about that. But tell me about this book.
Yeah, thank you, man. I'm glad you got it. Glad you're enjoying it. I was on a mission to make it a little more fun for the parents. As you took the words out of my mouth, you read the same books, and some of them are so lame. And so there's some prompts in there to hopefully like get the kids involved and make it a fresh experience every time you go through it. But it's kind of a play on one of my more famous bits of making fun of the baby name culture. That all the white people are naming their kids,
Apple,
Sparrow, and stuff.
Yeah, right.
And so it's kind of like a silly version of that. If it's a story of the parents like, we almost named you shopping cart and banana. Really over the top goofy. Because my first pass was like making fun of real names kids are named, and the publishers were like, "This is for children. We can't really teach them that yet." I was like, "All right, I'm going to." But we had to line it up so it's cute, it's goofy, and I was very proud. We have almost 5-star review, but we got like a 3-star review. Some lady said it's too silly. So hey, I'm proud of that.
Yeah,
beware.
Put that on the cover.
Put
that on the cover right there.
Put it on the cover. One of the acknowledgments, or endorsements. And so it kind of came from that, and the publisher had a great idea of making fun of that world, but then the great sweet payoff of you get a chance to explain to your kid how they got their name,
which is beautiful.
So yeah, it's kind of a cool. I don't know. At least as a parent myself, I don't know if that's a thing that, especially in our culture, that there's not like a moment where like, here's how you got your name, son or daughter, and it's a very meaningful thing for most all of our names. And so I think it's a cool payoff at the end. And we have 2 kids. They both are family names and have a lot of importance. So looking forward to when they're old enough to kind of understand that.
I do appreciate that you resisted probably the somewhat narcissistic urge to like make the payoff one of your kids' names like the end, but it wasn't. Like I was like, oh, that's not even his.
Right. You're like,
yes. I don't want to spoil
Spoilers,
it for those who haven't read it. Yeah, exactly. And I was like, he didn't make the choice, which is actually kind of a brave, cool thing that you were like, no, this isn't about my kids. It allows it to be about whoever's reading it,
Right. Yeah, that was the hope. That's good. And then that page looking at there with all the names, I wanted to put Karen, but then cross it out.
Hilarious.
And they turned me down, man.
They weren't doing
it because my mom's name is Karen. She okayed it, but I like to think she's the spokesperson of all Karens.
No, but it is neat because then you have this page at the end, which is, this was your first nickname, some other things about it. Like, I just think that like you give it as a good springboard and then they can fill this out. So then from then on, this is almost like a little certificate for them to keep as a keepsake and remembrance of their name, which is kind of a fun thought.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Now we want more kids. So now pressure's on. We got to keep thinking of meaningful names, Because do you know the meaning of your name?
Yeah, it's a biblical name. It means united or attached or joined. And my middle name's Aaron. So Levi's the priestly tribe. Aaron was the first high priest. So my parents didn't give me a lot of leeway in what I was going to end up doing. It was like,
yeah, no kidding.
You're going to either be a Jewish priest that has to have converted, or you're going to be right there,
Nice. Some people.
What does Trey mean?
Trey is, I'm Thomas the Third. So I'm your good old classic, you see a white boy named Trey, he's probably like Gerald the Third or something. So that's me. My son is Thomas the Fourth. So we're keeping it going.
And what does Thomas mean?
Thomas, well, to be honest, it was never given to me that there was a meaning behind the actual name Thomas. I know my grandpa was the first, and so the meaning is it's just a family name passed down.
But do you know what Thomas actually means?
No, I just know of, doubting Thomas.
It looks like it means a twin.
Tom.
Thomas means a twin.
I did know that. So that's funny.
Thomas is amazing.
Not a twin.
Do you know much about that dude? After obviously the doubting thing got crazy famous, but he went on to evangelize India and then got like martyred with a spear. And there's a church. I was there randomly in India, and they were showing me this is where Thomas was martyred. There's like a church that got started in his honor there. It's crazy.
Wow. What part?
Kerala. Kerala. Okay. It's like coastal. It's real pretty.
Yeah. It's on my list to get to that part of the world. But yeah, Thomas. And so he's Thomas the Fourth. He goes by Thomas. And we got our baby girl, Eva, which is my wife's grandmother's name. So we got to come
nice Wall-E reference there. Eva.
We did watch Wall-E. That was exciting. My toddler loved that. Said Eva over and over again.
Isn't it crazy that they were able to make that movie? I feel like today it would be like, oh, that is fat shaming at its absolute worst,
Yeah. You watch a lot of movies that were made like 8 years ago, and you're like, now I'm so programmed. You're like, it's making me nervous.
That's hilarious.
They used to do anything. Yeah.
Although it's a wild new frontier now, man. I feel like
it sure is.
We're in a whole different era. It's like almost like a little course correction moment on all that.
Yes, we will see.
What do you think? I know you've talked a little bit about this on the whole TikTok thing. Do you think it's going to get bought? My gut was like, this is all such a scam just to get publicity. It's never going away.
I know I don't really get it, to be honest. I really, it's my understanding, and it really feels like China's would never ever sell it because they're like, why would we? We hate you, and we have this perfect algorithm no one can figure out. So I don't really know what that means. If president's gonna actually, if he's just gonna be like, whatever, we'll keep it, or if some point they're gonna say, you know what, we've got to get rid of this. But I don't know. My gut tells me they're gonna hold this thing out and be like, we're negotiating for so long, and maybe not do anything with it, or if Trump gets pissed and in 4 years he just crushes it as he leaves office or something. I don't know. Because now he's trying to come in and I bet he's trying to come in and be cool guy. He's like, I'm going to save it. Everyone's like, sick.
Right.
Young people love him.
Because he was like, he was crazy powerful during the election. Like
Right.
Biden is asleep and Kamala is having a dance party with Beyonce and his garbage
Yeah,
truck
all
and his
that.
McDonald's stuff. Like he was just crushing TikTok.
Yeah. Who knows, man? But yeah, Vine went a poof, so I was very prepared for TikTok to do the same, but we're still going, so we'll see.
Okay, so interesting. You know what it reminds me of is the daylight savings. Every year, I feel like, there's gone. It's going to be gone, and
Yeah, I
every
thought
year
they told
it's
us it
still
was
there.
gone.
And
Yeah.
it's still back. You can't get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe TikTok's the new daylight savings. Okay, so how do you think about, like, obviously, do you feel like now that you're on so many different contents, networks, that no matter what the next one is, you're going to jump on? Or are you selective when you hear about a new one? Like, how do you pick which ones to kind of get behind?
Oh yeah, I mean, I always, if it's worth being on, I'll be on it. Yeah, and you kind of like, I'm not really on Snapchat. I kind of tried it, but you also have to pick it. Snapchat is dominated by teenagers, and that I have to come to grips with. Teenagers don't care about me, and that's it's a real look in the mirror, but that's fine. And so just get on the platforms that make sense. TikTok was one. I was on it when it was called Musical.ly. It wasn't even TikTok yet, and being early there definitely helped. And so again, I learned that from the Vine disappearing. You just gotta always at least try to have a presence on all of them, because you never know if one day that'll delete one.
Is it harder now because it's so crowded, YouTube, all the different things, or do you feel like you can still reliably say this is going to do well? Or is there some sense of who knows to it all?
Definitely harder, a little bit of a sense of who knows. You just got to keep adapting to, it gets old. That's why I'm so grateful for touring, because it's kind of this very cut and dry. I'm in your city, buy a ticket, we'll do the show. And now you're just kind of a slave to all these algorithms of, all right, do it like this now, do it like this now. And sometimes that's fun, sometimes that gets old, but there's definitely, every kid wants to be an influencer now, and it's getting a lot more difficult to break through. So I feel very grateful I was early and right place, right time, because I think I've been on it long enough. I'm a little established where if there's a new platform, people want to follow me there versus just starting from scratch. It'd be tough these days.
Yeah, true enough. What about, and we'll get you out of here, AI with comedy? Like, where do you see these things? Like, do you think there's a future where your AI voice is creating comedy for you? Or like, have you done any like copywriting of your AI voice and all that?
I haven't gone down that road. I mean, I've used it like anyone else, maybe to do some of that boring work, like write, or like, I've used it even to be like, generate ideas. And from a good quality idea perspective, I think 99% of it's trash, but maybe it'll spew out one that get your brain going on a certain direction. Like I get all those applications, but we'll see how far it gets. I'm one who can't really wrap my head around AI ever being like actually funny or actually making groundbreaking music. But I don't know. I've heard a couple of songs pop up that are like, this is AI, and you're like, it's kind of a banger. So
yeah, like Randy Travis did that thing where it's his voice singing a song he couldn't sing anymore or whatever.
Yeah, that's like a cool application. But at the same time, you're like, but does that really count? I don't know.
Yeah, true. What about, have you trained an AI voice to speak like you yet?
I have not. I haven't.
If you upload, I mean, you have infinite amount of things to upload. If you upload enough, you can train a bot to speak like you. So it would be interesting to hear like it spew back your material and just butcher your punchlines.
I agree. I'm gonna have to look into that. You
okay,
just do my podcast for me.
That's it. Do your podcast for me. Grow Up. You've got Correct Opinions, your podcast. Win-Win is the new tour. I think that is As people are listening to this, it's March 12th. That's ongoing till June, right? There's quite a few dates still left in there.
Yep. Shout out, whenever you're listening, just go to my TreyKenner.com. You'll see the dates there. We're coming to DC, Spokane,
Huntsville, Alabama. Are you going to go see the Saturn V rocket while you're in Alabama?
Well, been there, done that. Might have to do it again. There's not a lot to do in Huntsville. It's a great town, though.
You've been? I have not. That's the one NASA place in the country I haven't been to yet.
I've done shows there before. It's a great club there, great people, and they have a nice airport, believe it or not.
Okay.
And they got the cool NASA thing. So,
and then Spokane. That's real. Actually, maybe what is that? May 10th in Spokane. We may have to come out.
How close are you to Spokane?
Like 3.5 hours. Not far.
Dude, that Spokane's awesome. The club's great, and we're gonna. I'll check it. Oh, we pop over to Coeur d'Alene. It's a great time.
Okay, well, we're only a couple hours, but you have 3 nights there, 8th, 9th, and 10th?
Sounds right. May.
That's what I'm seeing. Well, maybe we'll come. Oh, you're Cinco de Mayo. That's a big deal.
Ooh, that's fun. Yeah, you're invited, man. Let me know.
Maybe we'll come out. Well, I hope everyone will get tickets. If you're a parent, the book is How You Got Your Name. And if you have a Hulu or what is it, Disney Plus nowadays, you can watch Grow Up, Trey's. Is this not your first comedy special, but first with a big distributor like that?
Correct. Yeah. Second one overall. My first is out on YouTube. Came out a few years ago. Great. But this one I'm really proud of and really excited about. Yeah. Hulu.
Okay. What island are you on in Hawaii? I forgot to ask that.
Maui.
Oh, man.
Dude, it's the best.
Are you on the, which side are you on? The Wailea side or the Kaanapali side?
Wailea. Yeah. So we're just enjoying the weather, but going to the beach with a couple kids, figuring it out. My toddler got stung by a jellyfish. That was exciting.
Oh, how'd that happen? Just in the shallows?
Yeah, I think it was really unlucky because a lot of people were swimming and that we didn't see any of them, but he definitely came out freaking out. As we definitely felt like the tourists, because he's screaming and we're kind of looking around like, help, help, help. And they're like, he got stung. He's fine. You're like, what? Help. We were a little, in hindsight, I was like, yeah, he was fine. We got some vinegar on him. He was good. The peeing on him, you hear about this. I Googled it and Google just told me a dozen times, like, that's not real. That's not real. That's not real. And I was also kind of like, where can a grown man pee on a toddler and on this public beach? I don't really see how I could pull that off. So that's why I didn't do it. But I don't know if you have any insight on that, because some people swear by it. Some people say it's fake.
I've heard the same thing that Google told you. I've heard that's not legit. I think vinegar makes more sense. Where did you get vinegar on a beach?
Well, that was what was tough. My poor wife had to try to keep it together while I hold it to the nearest little mart in our rental car. And,
ABC Mart?
Yeah, wherever it was.
ABC store?
The vinegar worked very well.
Like just immediately neutralization of the acids, probably. Mm-hmm. That's wild. Yeah, you don't want to be peeing in public on your child. That doesn't seem like that's worse than anything that the internet can catch you doing.
Yeah. See, I think he'll understand one day why I didn't.
Let me ask you this. Did you go up to Lahaina yet? Have you seen the fire area?
No, I don't even know if we're going to make it up there, but we haven't been to the area that was hit with that.
Dude, that is so sad. We always have traditionally gone up to the Lahaina side to stay, not the Wailea side, which Wailea is like newer, nicer. Lahaina's older, but seeing it is so sad. If you drive up that way, it's like heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nuts.
Not funny. There's no jokes there. That's just sadness. Trey, I'm really glad that we could meet. I hope to meet you in person. I'm grateful for your time today. Really, really great.
Thank you, man. Great to meet you. Great to have you. Great combo. Appreciate you. Maybe we'll see you in Spokane.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to swing by LeviLusko.com and JennieLusko.com to see what's going on in our world.
And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And in the meantime, we would love to connect with you on social media.
Jennie and Levi Lusko, out.
Access more